Live from our hurricane headquarters with real-time analysis from some of the nation's top meteorologists, this is Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric.
Right on cue, day one of hurricane season, we have a disturbance in the Gulf that has increasing odds of forming into our first named storm of the year, and the hurricane season is just getting underway. We're going to tell you where the storms are heading, when they're going to get there, and what you need to know on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric here in the WFLA Now Stream Center. We're back for Season 5. Welcome in, folks. We've got an all-star cast of meteorologists joining us from across the southeastern United States. We've got Rebecca Barry and Amanda Holly here with us at WFLA in the Stream Center, and joining us from WKRG in Mobile, Alabama, great friend of the program, WKRG Chief Meteorologist Ed Bloodsworth. Can't wait to hear from Ed as we do. We're kind of making it a thing where we hear from Ed, I think, in our season premiere. Can't wait to bring Ed into the program. We can't wait to bring you into the program. We want you to use one of the hashtags that you see all around your screens. Hashtags, hey Rebecca, hey JB, hey Ed, and hey Amanda. We're going to send it over to meteorologist Amanda Holly for the very latest on what we're talking about as far as this disturbance in the Gulf, Amanda.
Yeah, right on cue. As you said, JB, we are talking about this disturbance that we've been talking about for the past couple of days. The National Hurricane Center, though, did update their chances of this developing into something tropical. Really, it would just be a weak tropical depression or a weak tropical storm. But it's going to drift off to the south. It's going to do the same thing that it's been doing. So our impacts haven't changed regardless if this develops or not. It's just going to continue to sling a lot of tropical moisture into the Tampa Bay area and portions of the Florida Panhandle off to the north of this disturbance as well. The National Hurricane Center are going to send those hurricane hunters into the storm a little bit later on today just to investigate, see what's going on closer to where this thing is trying to develop out there. But for now, we've got a medium chance of development. There's a lot of things impacting the system right now. As you can see, it's not very organized. We got a lot of stuff, a lot of moisture, showers and thunderstorms on the eastern side and not a lot on the western side. It's because strong upper level winds are preventing this from forming at the moment. It is being called Invest 91L though, so we do get those infamous spaghetti models. Yep, on the first day of hurricane season, we are talking about those spaghetti models. Luckily, they're all in good consensus. It's just going to drift off to the south here over the next couple of days. Again, regardless of development, we're talking about the moisture meandering in the Gulf here for the next few days. And then as it gets a little bit farther to the south over the weekend, the wind shear is going to pick up and it's going to tear this storm apart. But as it meanders, we are talking about those rain chances staying high. So will we have rain into the weekend? We had a gorgeous Memorial Day weekend with some lower humidity in place. It's not necessarily going to be the same thing heading into this weekend with this nearby. But the rain chances are going to be highest really across the peninsula of Florida. That goes for today, tomorrow, and into Saturday. I know, though, Ed, you are tracking this as well. You're not too far away from the Tampa Bay area. Want to hear your thoughts on rain chances across the Mobile area.
Yeah, really no major impact here. I mean, we're kind of going to see those normal pop-up thunderstorms, maybe a little added moisture for today. But as this thing drifts south, we'll see our rain chances decline. But there will be some significant beach and ocean concerns. So a lot of vacationers hitting those beaches after the Memorial Day holiday. So a high threat of rip currents along the northern Gulf Coast, the Florida Panhandle as well, as those seas are building to around 2 to 4 feet. So got those small craft concerns, and I know a lot of folks want to take the boats out this time of the year. Probably best to hold off on that for the next couple of days until this thing starts to drift farther south.
Yeah, and that will eventually happen over the weekend, but since it is going to kind of churn in the Gulf of Mexico for the next couple of days, it is certainly going to increase those sea heights, and those rip currents will become an issue as those seas get larger and larger. But for us here in the Tampa Bay area, similar to what Ed said, as we get into Saturday, we're going to be tracking those isolated showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon. Notice on Saturday, this is our forecast rain chances. We're not really looking at any kind of organized system at this point. It drifted off to the south and kind of broke apart. And there is a reason for that. That's because the upper level winds, we call it wind shear. We're going to talk about it a lot this season. We like high wind shear because that tears storms apart. Right now, it is sitting in an area of lower wind shear. That means pretty calm winds throughout the upper levels of the atmosphere. That's allowing that storm to get a little bit better organized. That's why the National Hurricane Center upped that chance of development here over the next couple of days. But watch what happens as I advance the time. As we go into early portion of the weekend, early Saturday morning, notice how the area of low shear moves over the state of Florida a little bit, and we're starting to see this red come in. Those winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, they really pick up. And that's what's going to tear this apart, whatever it ends up becoming. If it does become a weak, a little bit more organized system, this shear is going to tear it right apart as we head into the weekend. Now, the tropical moisture is going to linger, so those rain chances will stick around. But the shear itself, the winds are going to stay strong, and that's going to prevent any further formation for us and when we're talking about Invest 91L. So the main impacts locally, we're talking about the elevated rain chances, and we're talking about some localized brief flooding. We actually saw a significant amount of that brief flooding yesterday in the Tampa Bay area with those heavy downpours, and that's exactly what I expect to happen over the next couple of days each afternoon. Notice how up along the Gulf Coast, we're not getting those bright red colors. That's just indicative of maybe about 1 inch to 2 inches with some of your regular storms. But locally here across the central portion of the peninsula, we got a lot more of those bright reds. That's because these are going to be some slower moving heavy tropical downpours. And as that rain comes down in quick amounts, we are going to see that localized flooding. Otherwise, the impacts will be very minimal with this system. But this is just the first one, guys. We are going to be talking about a lot more systems as we go through the next 6 months.
Meteorologist Amanda Holly, we're going to start now our live Q&A. You can use the hashtags on your screen alongside meteorologist Rebecca Barry here in the Stream Center. Rebecca, we're back. Season 5 of Tracking the Tropics, and this is a great program because we can answer people's questions interactively.
I love it. You know, everyone, especially if you have a specialized question, you can use those hashtags, hey JB, hey Rebecca, when you use the hashtag that allows us to see your question, and that allows us to answer your questions as well. So make sure you use those hashtags.
And let's see what the very first comment that we have coming in here is from Jamie Brooks on the WFLA Facebook page. Hashtag hey JB, it's another season. Here we go. We should probably get started here as we bring in the entire team alongside WKRG Chief Meteorologist Ed Bloodsworth there in the bottom right. We should probably talk about the preseason predictions, you guys, as to what we are expecting. Ed, we like average or below average, and so far things looking relatively average as far as the forecast that we have here, correct?
Yeah, a couple of changes this year compared to the last couple of years. We are now looks like we are beginning to transition into what would like to be an El Nino phase, moving into the summer months, which generally, in most cases, tends to lead to less tropical activity overall. But at the same time, we've also got some extremely warm water temperatures out there. So a couple of counteracting factors this year has led the Colorado State, NOAA, to predict a near average seasons. But, you know, it's tried and true. We like to say it all the time is no matter how many storms form, all it takes is one to make it a bad year, you know, wherever it strikes. So really the seasonal forecast, very interesting to talk about, but they really should not have any kind of bearing on how you prepare for a hurricane season.
Rebecca, how accurate are these preseason predictions? How much stock should we really put when it comes to NOAA's preseason predictions, the Colorado State predictions as well?
And so when you look at NOAA's predictions, it's a range, and the range is so wide, it usually falls within the range or at least close to it. And so what I don't like about seasonal forecasts is the fact that people think, oh, it's going to be a quieter season. I don't need to be as worried about it. It doesn't matter if there are 500 named storms out in the Atlantic that are fish storms. If there's one storm that hits your neighborhood or near you, then it was a bad season for you. And so what I don't like about seasonal forecast is it may give you a false sense of complacency. But what I enjoy about is the science, of course, with all the different factors that they look at, whether it's the salinity of the sea in the Atlantic and how deep the ocean is where these systems are forming during the time of year that they're forming. And so I love getting down in the weeds with how advanced it is that we're able to do things like this and talking about El Nino and talking about La Nina. But I don't like the false sense that, oh, I don't have to worry about this season.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that crazy above average season that we feel like we talk about before every season other than 2023. Let's get to some of the questions and comments that are coming in. We're looking all around your screen. Hashtags, hey, Rebecca, Amanda, JB, and Ed. If we see that hashtag in any of our Facebook Live comment sections, we're going to bring in your comment with the tap of a touchscreen just like this. We're going to go back to Rebecca for Brody's comment. Brody, one of our Tracking the Tropics super fans. I feel like we
Brody.
see him in a lot of episodes.
Back.
Welcome back, Brody. Hashtag, hey, Rebecca. I noticed the hurricane hunters had plans to go out today and investigate that area. Is that still on? What is the latest there?
And so it's still scheduled this afternoon. They said if necessary, and since they are watching and they've upped the chances, they most likely will fly through that today. And so we'll have an update on them a little bit later on. When we haven't seen any air reconnaissance on a system like this, the first one is always probably the most useful for us because it finds that true center of rotation as they fly through it several times. And we find out, things that we cannot estimate via satellite. We get the true hard facts as far as the actual pressures and the actual winds that they find. So if we're going to see a big change, it's usually on that first fly through. And so if we're going to see it, go dramatically up or dramatically down in terms of chances to develop, it'll probably be later on this afternoon into the evening when we get that data.
As we look here at tropical satellite, Ed, this is interesting because it almost looks as if the center of this disturbance is closer. It might be my eyes, but it looks closer to Mobile than it does to Tampa Bay right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Amanda kind of mentioned, it's a very disorganized system, a very lopsided storm. But what you actually kind of led me into something I was just thinking about is these early season systems and very late season systems. This is actually kind of typical when you get activity early or late in the season, kind of how this one came about. A little surface trough that kind of was able to settle in the Gulf of Mexico and sitting over some water temperatures right now. At last check in that area, generally lower 80s right now. So you can get tropical activity. And if you get tropical activity in June, July, early in the seasons, we typically look at this location, Gulf of Mexico, areas on the Gulf Stream on the east coast of the U.S. So it's not as, although it is the first day of hurricane season, to see this, kind of popping up where it is, not too surprising, I guess, in terms of just the actual location of it. But like you said, still very lopsided system. And I think, as Rebecca mentioned, we'll get a good idea, a better fix on the system once the hurricane hunters fly into that system as they're scheduled to do later today.
Let's go to the next question, comment. Use any of the hashtags on your screen, and we can bring in your comment. The number one comment that we get from people joining us on Facebook Live is, how is it looking in insert town name here? Yep. Right? I mean, We're always talking about where people live. So Peggy is joining us on the WFLA Facebook page, wants to know, are we going to get rain in Hudson this weekend?
Probably, with a system like this, it's just very disorganized. With weaker systems, we get a bigger chance for flooding because when you have a strong system, the rain gets evenly distributed around the storm and you just get a more even and faster moving system. And this is not that. It's very weak. And so we're just going to get, and I'm going to use a very meteorological term here, blobs of rain drifting very slowly. And so if you're under one of the bigger blobs that's not moving very slowly, and Hudson might be at some point within the next 72 hours, you're going to get that potential for ponding water on the roadways, minor temporary flooding. This is a drought buster for us. I'm really loving seeing our big chances for rain.
Yeah, yesterday's rain was so nice across the area. That slow moving heavy rain, it just made for a nice evening, and then all the crickets came out afterward, and it was just a nice, quiet evening.
I have a very odd question that I'm going to pose, and this is the best part of doing what we do interactively, because you just never know where these episodes are going to go. There's no script, there's no teleprompter.
Oh boy.
And my question
You're scaring me, JB.
I know, right? Tropical storms and hurricanes, do they have anything in common with plants? Because of this question that we have from Judy in our comment section, hashtag HeyJB, is it possible that 94L, it's actually Invest 91L, but I want to just mention, of course, that she's at least well-versed enough to know that it is a 90L system that we're talking about, could leave a seed somewhere that could redevelop, asking if this particular one could break off into something that could later develop down the road. Is that even possible, you guys? I'll bring you all on here.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, right now it's kind of developing along a stalled frontal boundary, right? So if the circulation kind of goes away, we could see something else, recirculate back up if that stalled frontal boundary kind of lingers across the area down to our south as it drifts south over the next few days. I don't think that's really going to happen with this. Our longer range models aren't forecasting that at this point, but we've seen it happen before.
Yeah, I think the shear is probably the most likely factor to keep that from happening at this point, but just because of the direction that it's drifting southward towards that higher level of shear, but not impossible at all, just like Amanda said.
Yeah, first of all, brilliant, JB, to weave your way to that question. That was very, very, very well done. As I kind of just said a little bit earlier, it says these early in June, you can still get, these cold fronts and little stalled boundaries to settle into the northern Gulf Coast, drift into the Gulf. We've seen that a couple of times here in the last couple of weeks, and a little kind of trough of frontal boundaries in the area of lower pressure. And if they sit over the Gulf long enough, occasionally you can get a little surface low to spin up, and that appears to be was what happened here. So so you got to kind of watch those boundaries closely when they kind of just start settling in over very warm, deep ocean water this time of the year, as we'll generally find in the Gulf of Mexico in June.
Let's bring in this comment from KLFY's Facebook page. Hello to those folks joining us watching Tracking the Tropics in Louisiana. Hashtag Rebecca, what are the storm names this year? And I think that we might have that graphic on the ready because, yes, it's a new Atlantic hurricane season year, and that means a new list of names. So let's go to that new list of names here. All the way through the alphabet, you guys. What's the trickiest one to pronounce on this list, Rebecca?
Probably Philippe.
Philippe? Are we getting there? Because they do release the pronunciation guide in addition to the name.
It's no Isaias. But.
Yeah, I was about to say you're hearkening very bad memories of Isaias having to say that all the time.
I will say Idalia. That one is Idalia.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Idalia.
Yeah.
Idalia.
I'll tell you what's actually interesting about this list of names, though, is this is the same list of names that was used in 2017. You remember the names get recycled every year, and that year 4 names were retired from that list. And if you remember 2017 in the state of Florida, then one of those names you'll know very well, Irma. So that name was one of the names that year. We also had Harvey, Maria, and Nate were retired that year. So the H, I, M, and N names that you see on the list are replacement names from the storms that were retired back in 2017.
How about the K name? How do you pronounce that one, you guys? Help me.
I believe it's Katia.
Yep.
Katia.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, look, we have all year long. At least me, I can speak for myself. Right before that letter comes up in the alphabet, that's when I'm studying how to pronounce that name. All right. So
you never know how long you're going to have to talk about it.
That's right.
Can I tell a name story?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have a comment in our comment section. So let me just introduce this now from Jelani in our comment section on the WFLA Facebook page. Hold on, it's loading, and here it is. Says hashtag, hey, Rebecca and Amanda, any weather puns and any weather jokes? So weather stories, puns, jokes.
Okay.
Excellent.
It's season 5, episode 1. All yours.
So I have this funny name story. And so I feel like everyone, the first time you get the list for the year, you look through and see if there's anybody you know. Like on this one, my husband's name is Don, so I'm really excited for potential tropical system Don. But there was a tropical storm, Rebecca, and I remember the day that it formed, I was sitting at work and it formed and I got so excited. I went straight to the anchor desk and I said, you need to lead with me. And they're like, what's going on? I was like, I got tropics, just come straight to me. And they came straight to me and I said, I've been waiting my entire career to say this. Tropical storm Rebecca's formed. And it was the cutest storm, and it was very true to form. It was a weak little tropical storm, very nice, and it went straight to the islands and spent the weekend there and then dissipated. I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar personalities.
Yeah. You don't want your name to be associated with like a category 4, category 5 storm.
No.
You don't want that. So
also, can't help but think of our former colleague here at WFLA, Ian Oliver, who Hurricane Ian, my goodness. Yeah, no, he heard it for a while and probably still hears about it to this day. You know, we use the hashtag system, everybody, because it allows us to more easily see your comments on social media because the hashtags are brighter. And it also basically allows us to get an idea as to whether or not you want us to put your comment up on screen. But sometimes the comments are just so nice. Even if you don't use the hashtag, we're going to throw you up here. And this is coming from Ed's Market, WKRG, of course, in Mobile, Alabama. Wesley wants to know. He says that he is watching on the WKRG Facebook page right now. He says, Mr. Ed. How nice is that? Mr. Ed, what is the direction of travel and the expected travel path?
Yeah, so Wesley, thanks for popping that on. So again, so this is a very weak little system, and it's just kind of meandering in place now, but high confidence that this is going to begin drifting south. So going farther south next couple of days. This will not be an impact in any direct way to the northern Gulf Coast. Maybe some elevated rain chances this afternoon along the immediate coast. And again, but I do also want to emphasize, like I said earlier, we still have a lot of vacationers around here that have extended their Memorial Day holiday to a Memorial Day full week off. So make sure you're paying attention to the beach flags to know the rip current risk if you are heading to the coast. If you see the red flags flying, which they are today, in fact, best to stay out of the water. If you see double red flags flying, you cannot go into the water. At that point, it's illegal to do so. We always look at tropical systems and you look at all kinds of weather hazards, but guess what the number one weather-related killer on the Gulf Coast is every year? It's rip currents. And so a lot of folks are unaware when they want to get into the Gulf. Understandably, it's beautiful, but there are some threats out there, and even these little weak lows out there in the Gulf can help to kick up that threat. So please pay attention to the beach flags. We want to make sure you're having a good time, but make sure you're staying safe while you're here.
Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, shout out Baldwin County, man, just awesome place with some great people. Where Ed is working at WKRG, of course. I know the station well. Let's go to some of the other comments that are coming in. But before we do, guys, I'm looking at these spaghetti models, and I can't help but feel that this disturbance feels dizzy a little bit to me, like a little dizzy. That's the word that comes to mind, Amanda?
Yeah, that's accurate, because right now there's not anything really steering it. So that's why all of this moisture is just lingering in the Gulf, and it's really not going to start to push to the south until tomorrow. So it's just going to meander. It's going to get a little dizzy itself as it spins around and then drift off to the south. But there's nothing big steering it at the moment, so it doesn't have anywhere to go.
Let's go to the next. We're going to do 2 for 1 here with Antoinette on the WFLA Facebook page. So are we going to have a washout weekend? And also Jamie Brooks, hashtag JB. Honestly, we just need some really nice rain to bring back our grass and plants in Sarasota. Some places are itching for rain. Whether this becomes Arlene or not, it doesn't matter. People just are really, they need the precipitation.
Around here, absolutely. We just did get an update to the drought monitor today, and it is good news. The extreme drought that we have had, that category has been eliminated, but we still have a severe drought down in Sarasota in our coastal counties. So we are talking about rainfall amounts going up over the next few days. This is just kind of look at the forecast rain, and you can see there's more heavy downpours in the forecast tonight for the Tampa Bay area. There's more heavy downpours in the forecast for tomorrow night in the Tampa Bay area, and the same goes for Saturday. Now, Rebecca, you said it best earlier. They're just kind of some slow-moving blobs, though, so it's hard to pinpoint exactly where they're going to form and where they're going to dump 2 to 4 inches of rain. But we had a good coverage yesterday.
We did. Now, it came a little too hard and fast in St. Pete and parts of Manatee County. That's why we did get the flood advisory, and we had some flooded roadways, and that's possible again today, again on Friday. Probably a little less likely on Saturday, maybe.
Yeah, we'll start to return back to our normal summertime afternoon storms over the weekend, so be on the lookout for that. But that's still an opportunity for you to get some rain there.
This looks like me when I try to paint my living room in the center of your screen. Like just splatter all over the place, just dots everywhere. We'll make this a last call for your questions and your comments as they're coming in on Tracking the Tropics. But I brought up Arlene for the first time on this episode. I want to make this clear because, Amanda, you and I were talking about this before the show began, off stream. We were talking about how there's the 50% chance of development over 2 and 7 days. But that's not a 50% chance of becoming Arlene, because it technically forms when it becomes a tropical depression.
Right. So those chances are for it to become at least a tropical depression, if not something stronger, a tropical storm or a hurricane here. But the chances can be high even if it develops into a tropical depression. We really are just looking for that low-level center of circulation when we consider it a tropical system. Right now, it's just kind of an organizing area of some moisture. We don't have anything to organize just yet. So we'll be watching for that. But yeah, even if it becomes a tropical depression, remember that's not a name, that would get a number. We wouldn't see Arlene with a tropical depression.
Rebecca, I keep hearing words like dizzy, disorganized. The chances of this becoming Arlene are probably somewhat low-ish.
It's lowish. I do think if anything that they find today, they may find that it's a depression and make it a number. I think that depending on how quickly it starts to drift further south into that area of more high shear, that it will become less and less likely that this is named Arlene. That being said, because of our upgrades in satellite and technology, they name a lot of systems that don't look as good as this one. So there's a chance.
We've seen crazier things happen.
Yes.
We have on this program over the course of 5 seasons now. This is season 5, episode 1 of Tracking the Tropics, launched back in 2019 by, of course, the team here at WFLA, which at the time included our good friend Ed Bloodsworth, who's now the chief meteorologist at WKRG News 5 in Mobile. Ed, I want to end with you here on this particular episode. What are some of the things as far as the season storylines that you're really paying attention to, both locally for your audience in Alabama and as well just regionally for the country as far as the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season?
So one of the big storylines that I'm really focusing on specifically for this area, and I would assume this would certainly apply to the folks in the Tampa Bay area as well. We're actually airing a hurricane special on WKRG tonight at 6:30, and I had a pretty good conversation with some of our local emergency managers. And the real big common theme that they were stressing is, and you mentioned Baldwin County, especially down here, the tremendous growth in Northwest Florida, Tampa Bay area, slower Alabama. There are a lot of people who have been moving into this area in the last couple of years who have never been through a tropical system, have really no good idea in terms of, I mean, they see the pictures, they saw the devastation that Ian caused, but it's still, for a lot of folks who have never actually gone through a system like that, they really don't have a good grasp in terms of what it is like to actually go through a tropical system with the driving rain and the winds and everything. So the big message that our local EMs are trying to push this year is they're trying to reach as many people as they can. And they're urging folks to, emergency management, usually you talk about it in kind of the worst times of the year during natural disaster. Get to know your EMs, give them a call, to have those kind of conversations with them to help you prepare and to really just build a more resilient community. Just a lot of folks that just don't truly understand what it's like to go through a tropical system. So, preparation is key, whether it's a quiet year or a busy year. The last thing you want to be doing is having to rush to completion to prepare if something's coming. So speak with your local emergency officials. They can give you a lot of good advice heading into this season.
Delivered so well that if Ed were to run for mayor of my town, I would want to live in that town. I would want to be with Mayor Ed Bloodsworth. Of course. Yeah,
I'll stay in the weather lane.
Ed Bloodsworth joining us, everybody from Mobile. Same question to the two of you. Mm-hmm. This is our first episode it's the first day of hurricane season in 2023. What are some of the things you're going to be monitoring in the months ahead?
Go first.
So you kind of said it earlier too. Even though the forecast is only calling for an average season, it doesn't say exactly where those storms are going to be forming. I'm also going to be obviously tracking each storm and seeing if they're going to come a little closer to home or not. And then the other thing I'm going to be watching for is we have competing weather factors for development and for hindering development. So I'm going to be watching for which ones kind of win out, right? So we have El Nino developing, and that typically hinders tropical development a little bit more. But we also have record warm water temperatures in the Atlantic, and those are competing factors. So do we have tropical waves come off the coast of Africa and survive because of that warmer water, even though we might have some higher wind shear out in the Atlantic? Or is it really just complete washout because we have such high wind shear out in the Atlantic the entire season? That would be great. That's definitely what we want. But obviously, we'll be tracking it here on Tracking the Tropics.
What about you, Rebecca?
Mine's a little more local because we had such a terrible algae bloom off the coast with red tide, and we blamed part of it on a local disaster, Piney Point, and we blamed part of it on the runoff from Hurricane Ian, the runoff of fertilizer and how much water we got. And so I'm kind of watching to see what the red tide looks like this year in an absence of Piney Point and in an absence of potentially, hopefully, a tropical system, and seeing how that goes. Because as scientists, there's just so many questions. We have theories and we have ideas, but we don't really know. And so I'm just curious as to how that shapes up.
Well, we have an incredible team here in Tampa. We have a credible team, part of Next Star Nation, with all the meteorologists that we have across the country, 200 plus stations that are represented as far as the effort that we have to keep our local audiences across the country informed as to what is going on in their neighborhood. And also, too, let's not forget, as well as we come back here to the Quad Box, let's not forget that especially people in northern and midwestern states, they have family down here in the Gulf Coast. They have family down here in Florida. They want to be in the know as well for their family members in the southeastern United States. We are here for you regardless of where you call home. We're live on the internet every Wednesday at 12:30, and we have additional episodes over the course of the year as well. And we have all of your resources, everything that you would need to know, previous episodes, storm updates, models, everything you need to know about hurricane preparedness. You can find it on trackingthetropics.tv, a really important resource for our audience, especially those who want to just stay in the know as far as the systems that lurk out there over the course of hurricane season. And all the episodes and the featured meteorologists like Ed, who join us as well, it'll all be there. It's a great resource for our audience to be able to stay up to date. I'd like to thank our chief meteorologist at WKRG in Mobile, Ed Bloodsworth, for joining us on the program, alongside, of course, meteorologists Rebecca Barry and Amanda Holly. I'm not going to say Rebecca Holly. I'm not going to get that mixed up. Amanda Barry or Rebecca Holly. I'm not going to get that mixed up. I'm JB, a non-meteorologist, just a host of the program, folks, to let you know exactly what's going on out there. Again, we are live 12:30 on Wednesdays, and we'll have additional episodes as storms form. Thanks so much for joining us on Tracking the Tropics, powered by Bose Electric. For our entire team, we'll see you next time here from the WFLA Now Stream Center.
Find Tracking the Tropics on these platforms. And for storm updates, the latest models, and helpful resources, visit trackingthetropics.tv.